Check this out. Sometimes your level of frustration is based in the mere fact that God is trying to get you to move. What does that look like? Let's just say you're waking up, you just feel like, oh my goodness, everything that I try to do, there's always something that's happening to not allow it to happen. You can be sitting down and you can just start feeling like I don't fit here. I feel like I don't fit in. And you develop a level of frustration. But the thing is that that level of frustration is simply God. Sometimes, not all the time, because sometimes you might be frustrated because that's on you. But if you're frustrated and God is behind the frustration, he's merely trying to get you to move. And the problem is when you don't really know who you are. There's a such thing as, you thinking that you're this type of person. That's what you think. And a lot of times that's tied into what you do. So if you're, I talked about this the other day, if you're a PM and you're like, okay, this is what I do, but it's not who you are. And when you get tied into what you do, you stop focusing on who you are. I'll give you a better example. When I started doing these videos, started writing, started doing all this stuff, this was years ago. I was so focused on who was listening, on who was reading, on who was liking. I was so focused on that I thought that my identity was tied into who was liking, who was watching. And the problem when you think that that's your identity, when you don't get the likes, when you don't get the views, you question yourself. And when you question yourself, you will then move away from the very thing that you thought you were supposed to be doing. And for myself, for a while, I had periods of time when I said, man, forget this. Ain't nobody paying attention. Ain't nobody nothing. It wasn't until I really identified who I was as a person. Because if you know who you are as a person, you do what you do and the applause and the likes doesn't affect you because you know who you are. A lot of people run around here and you selling wolf tickets. You don't really know who you are. So you can be trying to produce something in the world, and when it's not seen, you move on to the next thing because you really don't know what you identify as. So you go through life and you're jumping and you're jumping and you're jumping and you're jumping and you're frustrated and you base that feeling on things. If you're in a relationship and you're relationship hopping, you turn around and say, there's no good men, there's no good women out there. Instead of looking at yourself and saying, what is it that I'm doing? I'm no relationship expert at all, but here's what I think. This is just my own personal opinion. Sometimes if you find yourself in a long relationship, the problem is you continue to do things like you have always done. And now here's the thing. I just said that God uses frustration as sign to move, not move out the relationship, but change some things up. You see, if you're in a relationship for 5 years, how you love, the core of it stays the same, but how you show love has to evolve. Because at year 5, I might not like you like I did in year 2. I love you, but I might not like you the same way I did in year 2 if I haven't identified what it is that I need to do to move forward. So you're in a relationship and you're frustrated. You're frustrated because God is trying to get you to move on to that next version, but you so stuck in your ways. And you stuck in your ways when you say stuff like, this is how I've always been. Or you try to find minute things to prove yourself right. And I watched my grandparents be together for 64 years. I always say this, I've never seen them argue. It doesn't mean that they didn't have arguments, but they knew enough not to allow us to see them argue. But out of 64 years, I'm sure that they had times where they didn't like each other, but they loved each other because they found a way to love each other for what's needed in that moment. And you can't do that without knowing who you are. I found myself in positions a lot of times to where I felt as if I was lowering myself for certain things. But what I started to do now that I'm 45, what I started to understand was it wasn't that I was lowering myself. It was I was allowing myself to see what God was doing in my life. So to the outside person, it looks like, oh man, no, because I know who I am. I know what I bring to the table. So when I produce these books, when I produce these videos, it doesn't matter if I get one like because I know who I am and I know why I'm doing it. But my level of frustration is what got me here. I was frustrated because God was trying to get me to move. And when I didn't move, the frustration began to get a lot higher. So I found myself in positions that God is trying to move me and I was just being stubborn. Yesterday, my son showed me that he purchased my book. Now, here's the thing. He didn't have to do that, but he did it. And it did my heart joy because I have produced something in the world that years ago I allowed me not knowing who I was to not get to that point. So now I am walking in my purpose, and I could have been did this 12 years ago, but I know who I am now. And every time that I get frustrated, I don't blame circumstances. I look within. Okay, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing right now? Why am I frustrated? And I like to use relationships because relationships isn't just romantic sense, it's friend sense too. A lot of times you're in these situations and you have outgrown the situation, but you stay in the situation because you don't know who you are. And a lot of times you identify as the current situation that you're in. That's why when I see people that been together 30 plus, 40 plus, 50 plus, I like to talk to them because to me, it is a miraculous feat to understand that you have to learn different ways to love someone. And in order to do that, you have to understand who you are, not who you pretend to be, because the character that you show up to in the world is not who you really are. And you know that. I'm gonna get out your space, but I hate when people come on social media to announce that they're leaving social media. They'll put up a post and be like, yeah, I'm done with this. Ain't no more social media for me. And I always laugh when they say that because I know in 5 minutes in a day, sometimes they go 48 hours, they're right back on social media. The reason why they say that is because they want the feedback from the people. They want somebody to say, oh no, don't leave. Please come back. Because I'm a firm believer is if you off social media, you off social media. You don't have to make an announcement. You just do it. But to me, I feel like the people that do that, they are struggling with identity. They are struggling with the difference between character and identity. So they make these announcements because they want something to feed their soul. They want one person to just say, no, don't leave. And then they'll come right back. But they never was going to leave anyway. Or the people that say I'm off social media, but you look on social media and you see their thing is green because they're looking at everybody. They ain't off social media. What I have found in my 45 years on this earth, and I have just found this out in my later years, is that it is hard for people to congratulate the person that you are if they don't know who they are. It is intimidating to give somebody props for walking in their purpose. See, they'll give everybody else props because they know their real character. They know that somebody's out here playing the part, and they will come on social media and they will be like, I'm so proud of you, because that's easy because they know that's just a character. That's not their identity. So they can say, man, I'm so proud of you. But if you're really living that life, if you really have made those changes and that other person hasn't, it's hard for them. See, my son, he saw the challenges that I went through. He showed me a video of one of the videos that I did and he was in it. And this was 12 years ago. And he remembered it, but he showed me that. So he's seen my progress. He's actually seen me doing a post or something and it's 2 likes. It might have 100 and some views, but it's 2 likes. So he saw me get to this point. And that's something that I'm proud of because when God takes me from this earth, I live on. The impact that I have made, I live on. So if I say that I live forever, that's what I'm talking about. My grandparents lived forever through me. The impact that they made on my life, when I come on here and do these videos, they live on forever. So I'm sorry for this video being so long. I just had to do this because people have to understand that your level of frustration sometimes is tied to God moving you. He's trying to push you and you're frustrated because that's like you wearing a size 12 still trying to fit in a size 10. And you trying to fit in a size 10 because you like how that shoe looks. And you went online and you tried to order a shoe and they didn't have no more sizes. And you said, well, I can fit in a 10. So meanwhile, you look fresh, but you're uncomfortable. You look the part, but your feet hurt because you have outgrown a size 10. That's a message. Y'all have a blessed day.